A teenage boy in Tennessee is accused of viciously stabbing a 13-year-old cheerleader to death in a case that is eerily similar to another teen-on-teen attack. We're going to dig into the death of Savannah Copeland and how her father helped to find her body. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. It's been a little more than a week since 13-year-old Savannah Copeland was found dead on a trail in Knox County, Tennessee. And the community, as you can imagine, is still reeling, trying to understand, comprehend what happened here, considering that the sheriff says deputies have arrested 15-year-old Malachi Harris for this killing. He's been charged with second-degree murder. Investigators say that in the early morning of Tuesday, November 12th, Harris used a pocket knife to stab Savannah multiple times. Her dad, Michael, knew something wasn't right when his 13-year-old daughter hadn't come home the night before. So what did he do? He used the Life 360 app to track her location. And that is what led investigators to find Savannah's body near this popular hiking trail. And now, if you go there, there is a memorial to Savannah. There's a cross, there's belongings, there's flowers. Her friends and family say that Savannah was just an incredible person. She was passionate about cheerleading at Powell Middle School. Michael Copeland says that the cheer team created an award that's going to be given to someone at the team every year who embodies Savannah's character the most. And her favorite color was blue, and that has been seen around town as a way to honor her. According to her obituary, Savannah Grace Copeland had an older brother as well as a twin. She wanted to go to the University of Tennessee for college to study forensic anthropology. Her family created a GoFundMe to raise money for all the costs that come up during an unexpected loss like this. They've raised over $50,000 right now, which is incredible. We'll put the link up there in case you want to support the family as well. But the teen who is accused of killing Savannah is due back in court in January, and no word yet on a motive. No understanding about why this allegedly happened, and also not clear if he's going to be charged as an adult. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about this case and you say, why does this sound so familiar? That may be because this case has a lot of eerie similarities to the Tristan Bailey case. Tristyn was also a bubbly 13-year-old cheerleader who was stabbed to death by another teen. This happened in St. Johns County, Florida on Mother's Day, of all days, back in 2021. And Aiden Fucci, who was 14 years old at the time, was a fellow student of Tristyn's and lived near her. And he was spotted on surveillance video walking with Tristyn earlier in the night, then running back alone later that night. Tristyn's body was found in the woods with 114 stab wounds. Hard to comprehend. 114 stabs, slashes, cuts. Fucci was arrested. He was charged with second-degree murder, but that was upgraded to first-degree murder with premeditation. He was charged as an adult, and just before his trial was set to start, Aiden Fucci changed his plea to guilty. And since he was a juvenile, he wasn't eligible for the death penalty, but Judge Arlie Smith sentenced him to life in prison back in 2023. Hey, by the way, thank you so much for following us on this story. It's an incredibly sad one, but it's an important one to cover nonetheless. And the reason we're able to do that is because we have amazing support from our sponsors, and there's one in particular that I think is really important because it concerns personal safety, and particularly safety online. I think you would be shocked at how much of your personal information is out there, like your address and your phone number. Do you ever wonder why you get so many spam calls and emails? That's because all that information is public, but that is where our sponsor Incogni comes in. So this is a service that helps you take control of your online privacy by removing your personal data from data brokers, these huge companies that sell and trade your information without your permission. And here's the kicker. These data brokers have to remove you from their database if you ask them to. Now, you might be thinking, who has the time to call these people? Well, that again is where Incogni comes in. They contact the companies for you to get your online safety back. You don't have to do a thing. And then they alert you after the request has been completed. So I highly recommend giving Incogni a try. And right now they have a Black Friday deal where anyone who uses code SIDEBAR at Incogni.com/sidebar gets 60% off of an annual plan. Hope you can check it out. So to talk more about this, I want to bring on Matt Hinson, who is the attorney that represents Tristan Bailey's family. Matt and I have spoken so much before about Tristan's case. And Matt, now when you heard the details of this, I'm sure this brought back a lot of unfortunate memories.
It did, and I've spoken with the Bailey family already about this case, and they're heartbroken. Their hearts are just they're broken for Michael and Amanda and Britton and Casey and the entire community, because it's not just the family. The family obviously is heavily affected, but the community itself is so heavily affected. And, Powell is a small community. We're talking about a population of roughly 13,000 people right there close to kind of the Appalachian mountain area. And it's amazing how much this affects the community. I've seen some of the articles of how the community's coming around to support them with lighting up their houses in blue and things like that. And it's the same thing that we saw here in St. John's with the support of Tristyn's family, and continue to see that. And it's very important for the family to have that community support.
I was going to ask you that. What is it like to have so many people on your side, so many people there to, help throughout the process, to just, even wearing blue is a way to remember her. What is that? What is the impact of having community support?
I think it gives the family a feeling of not being alone,
Yeah.
that they know that what has happened to them is also happening to the community, and the community is there to support them, and the community is there to support itself, because you've got to think not just about the family and what they're going through, but all the other children that were in middle school with her, and all the other cheerleaders and football players and classmates that have had to go through this as very innocent individuals, innocent children, and are having to learn a harsh part of life far too young. And that community support is very important, not just for the family, but it's important for the other parts of the community to know that they have each other's backs. And it sounds like that's what Powell does. Powell has Powell.
Yeah. I remember when the Tristan Bailey case happened, and we were kind of searching for answers as to why this happened. And it takes a little bit of time for that to come forward in any kind of case, but let alone when you're dealing with two young people like this. What do you think investigators are looking into right now?
They're probably looking into a mixture of two things. One, excuse me, they're looking into motive, and sometimes you cannot find a motive. Sometimes motives don't exist, such as in Tristyn's case. There was not a clear motive other than just sheer desire to murder someone and harm someone. And the second thing they're looking into is making sure there's enough evidence that whether there's a guilty plea, whether there's not, they have enough evidence to get a conviction. And I am sure that the prosecutors there in Powell are very intelligent and very wise, and are going to do their job just like the police force there are doing their investigation properly to make sure that justice is provided for Savannah.
Because we don't know exactly what led them to this suspect, right? I mean, I didn't see anything that was clear cut. Is it a little bit different when you're dealing with such a young suspect that they have to be careful about what evidence is released to the public?
Absolutely. And I think in any murder case, you have to be careful about what's going to be released to the public, because in the process of questioning and interrogation and evidence gathering, you want to make sure that you're not going to taint your investigation by releasing things to the public that could also provide information during that interrogation process that would lead them to the suspect properly without having the suspect already having information about it.
The idea, and this is something that I see too when you're dealing with such young people, if the allegations are true, stabs her to death on the side of this highway. This doesn't feel, I mean, I could be 100% wrong, but this doesn't feel like a case where somebody has the resources and the methods to commit a killing at another location, transport her body. This could have been pre-planned. This could have been an act at that moment. But I think when you're dealing with such young people, and her body was right in the open, right? It didn't seem to be a case where there was a large effort to try to dispose of her remains or anything like that. That would lead me to sometimes suspect, if the defense is going to say he didn't do this, it almost looks amateurish, right?
Right. And the important thing for us as a public in any murder case is to make sure that we're not jumping to conclusions based on what little information we have, because investigators are not going to release that information. And so we have to make sure that we are following along and supporting the family, but not jumping to conclusions either way, one way or the other, in terms of how the crime was committed, why it was committed, or where it was committed.
I wanted to get your perspective on this. So Savannah's dad, Michael, said this to Fox 19. He said, "I think it was a lack of compassion, a lack of empathy that took my daughter's life. I'm not going to allow it to be filled with that kind of rage. It's going to be filled with compassion. It's the only way I know how to defeat evil." What do you take away from that?
I take away from that Michael is one of the strongest men that probably walks the face of this earth to deal with the loss that he and Amanda are both dealing with right now, as well as their siblings. For him to stand up and say, this is going to be about her life and legacy and not about how she died. That's exactly the same way that Forrest and Stacy and their family took with Tristyn's life and legacy. Is we're going to focus on that. He's a very strong man to be able to focus on that and allow law enforcement and allow prosecutors to do your job. My hat's off to Michael. I cannot imagine what he and Amanda and the whole family are going through. I'm heartbroken for him, but also I'm impressed by his strength.
What advice would you give the family as they're going through this? And particularly, what legal advice would you give them? Because as they have to now sit through the legal process, which I imagine can be quite frustrating. I think back to the Koberger case, and the families there are incredibly frustrated with all of the motions and the delay, and they want justice. But at the same time, a defendant has certain rights and has the ability to present certain motions and arguments that could delay proceedings for a long time. Do you preview for them what to expect? What advice do you give a family like this?
I don't know that it's legal advice, more as practical advice.
Yeah.
The process of prosecution is very defense oriented. It's very defendant oriented because the defendant has a lot of rights. And our system is designed that way purposefully to make sure that an innocent person is not convicted. I think that from an advice standpoint, have a good relationship with your prosecutor. If you're able to have someone that can stand in and be a liaison between the prosecutor and your family so that you can kind of have that buffer there, especially the prosecutor and the media, because this case is very heavily media involved. It's got national coverage. Having someone that can help stand in the way there and help with them as victims, because they are victims. The law may not always recognize them as victims. They recognize Savannah as the victim, but they are victims. The family and even the community, they're victims. Having someone there to advocate for them is very important so that they can grieve and focus on themselves. But having that relationship with prosecutors is important. And that's one of the things that we do as a Tristan Bailey Foundation. We have a victim advocacy pillar that we stand on to help families all across the country, especially those families that have lost loved ones. They are welcome to reach out to us. If there's anything that we can do, and I can tell you that was echoed by, I just spoke with Forrest Bailey, Tristyn's father, anything that we can do to assist them as a foundation and as a family, as someone who's gone through it, we're there for them. They are more than welcome to reach out to us.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I hope the family hears that because they might need this at this time. Going back to the suspect, do you think he's going to be tried as an adult?
I don't know. I'm not quite sure about Tennessee law because I'm an attorney here in Florida. Every state has different laws on that, but it probably is going to go a lot down to motive. Most states, whether they're tried as an adult or not, he's currently charged with second-degree murder, not first. And I believe that's going to probably fall into the motive aspect and premeditation and things like that of whether he wills.
I want to end this going back to Savannah. This is her obituary where they say that Savannah enjoyed scary stories, drawing, pop music, explaining she and her family have been longtime members of the Powell United Methodist Church. And I just want to leave on this point. Savannah will be forever missed by everyone who knew her and loved her. Matt Hinson, thank you so much for coming on, and send my best to the Tristyn family. And also, thank you so much for announcing their support of the Copeland family. Hopefully there can be some sort of communication there, and because again, this family might need it. But Matt, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Our thoughts and prayers are with them and that entire community.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us on this story. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.